we now go back, Camden, you and I go back
The longest of
the
all of us.
longest.
Yeah.
We knew each other on the web
Hmm.
through yes, the previous website before even Reform Forum and Castle Church. Before that, you and I were involved with a website where we, in my case, I took papers I had written in the PhD program and serialized them.
Hmm.
Uh, that's how we got to know each other.
Kind of an early theological blog at
Right.
solagratia.org.
That's
And I
right.
was working with an associate pastor at the church where I attended. I say attended because they wouldn't let me be a member because it was a Baptist church and I wouldn't get baptized again. But a very faithful church, and I appreciated them a lot. But we were working on this website, Sola Gratia, and needed some contributors. And so we just sent an email to Bill Edgar at Westminster and asked if he or if any students or anybody would be interested in contributing. And this was like 2005, so you got to remember
That's a
that
while ago.
there was very early on. There were a few theological blogs, but very few, not many at all. And so Jeff and Sebastian Heck both contributed pieces. And Jeff and I started up a conversation. I always joke that Jeff's my first internet friend. This precedes social media, precedes all that stuff. It's hard. I know it's hard for some of you young people out there to remember. I'm only 38, but I had an analog childhood, right? Like I didn't have the internet at home at all until I
Right.
moved out and I got it at college. I had an email address when I was 17, but I could only access it at school, and no one was sending me messages, so why bother having it? So, but that's what life was like. But Jeff and I connected, and then from that point, that led to several things, and I got to meet Jeff in person when I was looking for an apartment in Philadelphia, preparing to move and to come attend Westminster.
And the first thing I did was to take you to the front porch of Lane Tipton's house.
Yep.
And so you got introduced, I think, to the Dawson K's study group.
Yes.
It was a student group of PhD and master's degree students who had discussed apologetic issues. Doss being the nickname for Machen, and K's being the nickname for Cornelius Van Til.
Absolutely.
So then Jim got involved, and we just had very good, we thought very helpful conversations around the table, dinner table, or going to wherever we were. And so at some point it dawned on us, well, I think maybe Camden, you had shared about your experience being out in the part of the country where there are not a lot of Reformed churches,
Yeah.
and thought that it might be useful for folk to sit in on the conversations that we have had.
Yeah, the kind of the story of this is I tried to record in our book, No Uncertain Sound. So if you want to hear about the Reform Forum origin story, comic books, all the superheroes always have an origin story. Well, we recorded an origin story for Reform Forum, and the timing just worked out well. I mean, in God's providence, I did come from an area where I was reading voraciously and just bathing in Reformed theology, but I didn't have anyone to speak with other than Jeff. Really, I had no confessional friends, nobody that subscribed to the Westminster Standards or the three forms of unity. And some of that maybe was because I didn't know who to talk to find those people, but there wasn't any real tremendously solid confessional church that was in my area. And so, praise God, I was in a church that preached the gospel and that were Calvinists, and they got me set on the right trajectory. Sometimes I joke they taught me better than they intended because they taught me to study the Bible well, and I moved beyond dispensationalism into confessional Reformed theology. But when we moved to Philadelphia, I was finding I was having theological conversations all the time. I joke, my wife thinks too many conversations, too often. But I remembered my previous situation and realized, well, now with this new technology, we can put audio files online, and you don't have to have a radio station for people to listen to a program. And you can have just a normal conversation. I already had the microphones and equipment because I still am into guitars and music and recording. And so I thought, well, why can't we just record some of these conversations and put them online and see what happens? because if you're not able to have a conversation directly, the next best thing is to be able to listen to one regularly, a people that are working on these ideas and hashing these things out. And that's how Christ the Center started. So Christ the Center existed as a program beginning January 2008, and it preceded Reform Forum. We didn't have, I just had a domain name, castlechurch.org, which was I bought it because it's, the Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the Castle Church door in Wittenberg, so I just bought that domain and I had it. And so that's why we just put it up on that website. But the program was always called Christ the Center. But it wasn't until later that we realized it was confusing people that the Christ the Center program was on Castle Church, and it sounded like the name of an actual church. And we didn't want to confuse anybody, so we thought about names for our organization, and Reform Forum came about.